The show, everyone. We have Matt today of Bella Familia Wood-Fired Pizza,
Correct.
Auburn, California. And we met because I was interested in featuring Scott, the previous owner of Bella Familia.
Yep.
And you broke the news. Scott's living his life as a happy retiree.
That's it.
And you took over the business. Houston, Texas. Good for him.
Right.
So welcome onto the show.
Thank you.
How did you get into pizza?
All right. So, the long end of me getting into pizza is I've been in pizza for quite a while. So, restaurant career started for me in the late 90s. Growing up, big pizza fan, like probably most American people. 2007, though, I bought a restaurant right here in Loomis from a Croatian-born, Italian-claiming older gentleman named Zorro. And he was famous for his pizza. He was one of the first pizzerias in this kind of eastern Sacramento area way back in like the 1960s. So he's kind of had like this cult of personality built around him. And I'd worked for him in the early 2000s in his restaurant here in Loomis, which kind of kept my passion for restaurants going. So I went to Cal Berkeley and graduated from there, but I worked in restaurants through my time there, and then started working in, corporate America to some degree around here in Sacramento, and ended up moonlighting with Zorro and his little pizzeria, old school Italian restaurant here in Loomis, and just re-energized my passion for food industry, and left him and went to culinary school in Italy back in 2002. Fast forward 2007, I bought him out of his restaurant, took over, we served pizzas. So I was in the pizza business for quite a while. While I owned that business, I opened the building that we're sitting in, which is the Gourmet Garage. This is a commissary. Originally for me, this was a setup to be an extension of the restaurant for us to do more catering. So when I took over the restaurant in 2007, we immediately started catering, doing small parties for obviously guests and whatnot. And it just kind of grew and grew and grew. So by 2011, I was like ready to sign a lease on this building and build out a new kitchen. We got open here in 2012. And Scott, Bella Familia, was one of my first tenants. Sometime in 2012, he came and signed up. So he had started his pizza company in 2007, around the same time that I started my restaurant.
Was he operating without a commissary up until then, or?
I believe he was. I think he had the one little trailer. And Placer County, like all the food truck stuff, was a little bit still new in Placer County. So when he first started, he was able to go out of the trailer with a pop-up tent and do farmers markets and do all that stuff.
Kind of like the Wild Wild West back then.
A little bit. Comparative, yeah, because it's definitely developed as I've been in the business in terms of commissary with the food trucks. So Scott came in here in 2012 and has been with me. He was one of my longest serving tenants until the point where a couple of years ago he decided he was really thinking heavily about retiring, and we began negotiating. In April of last year, he officially tossed the keys over to me on his pizza business. And coming from my background on catering, it was a real natural fit. I knew from conversation with him what his business was doing, what it was capable of doing, what opportunities he wasn't really grasping onto, what he had done really well with. So I saw like kind of the whole picture, and it made sense in my worldview of, what I had already and what I could bring from him and incorporate in and just kind of explode the whole thing. So that was the mission. So April of 2023, I got the keys.
All right, I'm going to stop you there.
Stop me there.
We're going to go to 2023 of April. We're going to go forward a little bit after that. But what happened to Zorro's?
So I ran Zorro's pretty successfully. So I got real great timing there. Bought him out, and my first day in operations was February 1st, 2007. And if you remember anything about 2007, like October was pretty rad. Yeah. So I ran it basically like I got in the building, ran it with kind of existing what he had for a few months, then closed, remodeled the interior, kind of a janky little place in a strip mall here in Loomis. But the whole restaurant environment back in the day was a little different. So what I was doing was like, we're going to create, a really, very authentic, made from scratch, good quality food, Italian fusion to some degree. And we're going to make this place like the most amazing place you never thought you were going into. And that was the goal, was like, okay, we have this place in a strip mall that looks very indiscreet. And the goal is you show up not expecting much. You walk in, we blow you away. don't charge you out the nose because we're not paying for the top location. And we create like a cult of, believe. And so I closed for July of 2007 to remodel the interior, got back open middle of August, got some good local press. September, we're jammed. The tables are packed every night until Hank Paulson goes, oh, by the way, there's a financial cliff over there. And then it's just boom, like it just stopped, right?
Really?
So, so like my very initial founding of, being entrepreneur was like, oh, here's some challenge, right? Right out the gates. We made it through. We were able to really suck in, and I was able to keep that restaurant surviving. And the vision really did end up kind of starting to happen around 2010, 2011. Like we really started getting really popular with people outside of Loomis. And like I had regular customers who would drive out from Sacramento. I'm like, there's a lot of nice restaurants in Sac. Like, yeah, but it's not like this, and so we really built a reputation for doing quality food from scratch, change the menu weekly, if not nightly, really keep everything fresh. We arrived on the formula of like some standards that just stay on. That's what the locals want. The pizza was kind of a standard bearer, and then everything else would flip, fresh fish nightly. We did oysters and champagne for a long time on Thursdays. That would bring in a certain crowd. And it just kind of ran its course. By 2014, I'd already gotten this separate building established. I was starting up the commissary. I'd gotten into restaurant consulting. I had a couple of clients that I was working with that was kind of more fun and engaging for me at the time, like really taking what I'd learned through my, career in restaurant industry. I'd worked in wine sales. So I had a lot of insider knowledge of restaurants. So I was doing some consulting, and that was exciting. And just watching like all the numbers, right? I'm watching, what am I doing in catering? What am I doing in commissary? What am I doing in consulting? And was my restaurant doing? And just over a little time, I ran analytics internally. And I'm like, the restaurant's a total liability. It
sucking the money.
It doesn't make a lot of money
for the time,
but it sure can lose a lot, because you got to be open on Tuesday and Wednesday, and Thursday, because if you want a crew, you got to work them 5 days. They got to have like full-time job. If you want a chef, you need to be a chef for Thursday, Friday, Saturday when you can make money. So you had to like suck up these slow periods. But, I noticed that like if one of my busy months didn't come in, it could throw the whole year. So I just got to the point where I was like, no, this has got to go. So I sold the restaurant.
Okay. Like having hindsight and seeing the times that we're in now, do you think Zoro's could make it out today with people being okay with irregular hours and like dinner time only? What are your thoughts?
One thing, I was super happy that I did not have a Zoro's during the pandemic. Like
sure.
that was the disaster of disasters. Even with the rescue plans that came out, it was just really bad. What has become of restaurant world and what has become of even like our community here in the time between 10 years ago when I sold it and now, I think it'd be almost more successful now. One of the reasons that I ended up selling the business is I got anecdotally a lot of feedback from my client base through my customers. So I left for a 3-week vacation in September into October of 2014 to get married and go to Italy and get married and do a thing. And my staff started reporting back to me when I got back. I'm looking at numbers. I'm like, man, our sales are like way off. Like, oh yeah, well, so-and-so came by and goes, oh, Matt's not here, I'll come back. And we got a lot of that. It started becoming apparent to me that like, the local regular really wanted me to be there. It became like this cult of personality kind of thing.
You were part of the brand.
Yeah, like I was the brand, because I had bartended or hosted every night. I was the face, because that's what you got to do when you're building. Like you got to make sure that people know that you care, that you don't let somebody leave unhappy, and I really took that very seriously. But being in a transitory point in my life where like I've got this consulting opportunity, I've got this catering opportunity, I don't want to be here every night.
Yeah.
And if I'm not here every night and people aren't coming because I'm not here every night, I got a real problem that's not really resolvable.
People have different goals when they get into business. Some people want to be hands-on, some people want to be hands-off, but it's good to know that you can turn that on and off anytime you want.
Sure.
Think, right?
Yeah.
So like, I guess fast forward now, we're just going to be jumping around here, but
Let's
like, how do you build something to where you can be hands-off? Because it seems like with the food trucks right now, you are.
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
And
so
also Scott was the. Would you argue Scott was the brand before?
Scott was the brand for a long time.
Right.
But he started figuring that one out, and and he and I discussed things like this a lot over the years.
Mhm.
Because I'm over here at the Gourmet Garage. I got my office in the front.
Sure.
He comes in to make dough, and he stops and he talks to me. Oh, I see you're working on a computer, doing books. Yeah, da da da. So we talked a lot over the years, and so I started seeing him starting to pull himself back out, and that was the part that he always had a problem with. Was like he was like, I like to go on every job. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I get it. I go, but you can't scale, Scott, if you got to go on every job.
So it's just being a little intentional about it.
Yeah. So around 19, 20, 21, he started getting more comfortable with this core that he had of 2 or 3 people, where it's like, you guys can go on a job without me. And he would let them go. But you could see that he was real nervous about it. But to your point, it's very important if you're building a business to not be the number one linchpin in the business if you can avoid it, because otherwise you're married to it, you're tied to it. And in my consulting work, my biggest piece of advice that I could give to somebody like yourself who's starting out is, what is your business model, and are you sure you're not buying yourself a job? Because if you're buying yourself a job, then what are you doing? Why don't you just go get a job? So when I looked at buying Scott's business, it was very much with the idea in mind that, like, here's how often I'm going to drive the truck out to a brewery to vend. 0. Like, if I drive that truck, shit has hit the fan.
Yeah.
So far it's been mission accomplished. Like, I've driven the truck less than a mile. Like, I can drive the truck. I've worked in the truck. I've gone out and done stuff because it's important for me to understand how it functions. But I know from past experience that I don't even want to be associated as the face of the Bella Familia. I want each one of my team leads and captains to be the face. I want each of my employees that's out there in the public to be the face. Like, if I got a weekly thing at a market, I kind of want the same crew to go, and that's the market crew that people are going to get to know.
Yeah.
And that way, like, if one switches out because they got a better life opportunity, we move one in, and it just sort of slowly, organically changes. But they're not expecting me personally to be there.
Let's talk about pan pizzas for a quick second. What are you using to press out your dough? I found out that whatever fat you use greatly affects the flavor of your pizza. And that is why the only brand I trust with my pizza is Cordo olive oil. Taste is everything, and other brands and other fats pale in comparison. Do you want to taste the difference? Go to cordo-olive.com using the link in the show notes. You can purchase a bottle there, or if you're an operator, you can get a free tasting. Just message me and I'll connect you with them. I'll leave my contact in the show notes. Thank you, Cordo Olive Oil, for sponsoring the podcast.
When we were talking on the phone prior to this interview, you made me aware that you made a big investment in this big old truck and you have to trust somebody. Right. So talk to me about how part of it is like, I know I'm not going to be the one driving it, but still in my mind, there'd be a little bit of anxiety.
Yep. How
did you justify or level your emotions with such a big old piece of equipment?
Sure.
Trusting it with somebody that is not you.
Yeah. It's still a point of anxiety, at times. Like, what happens if, my guy gets going a little too fast around the corner and dumps that thing over? We sent it up to a winery in Auburn last year where there was this one particular turn where I could just see my truck laying in the field down the hill. And I'm like, I called the guy driving that day. I'm like, you're going to come up to this. I know that turn. I'm like, I know. Dude, take it at 2 miles an hour. Like, go 0 miles an hour. I don't care if all of Auburn is behind you. Like, that turn scares me. So it's like everything else you do in business. There's risks associated with it. So you got to find a way to compartmentalize. And I've been in business now for over 15 years. So yeah, in 2008, shit hit the fan real hard. And it's like, okay, I just dumped all this money in, basically everything I could scrap together into this, and nobody's walking in the door.
Shit.
And we had a family table, this wooden table, and I brought up ping pong paddles and a net, and we started playing ping pong at 6 o'clock at night on Wednesdays.
Oh no!
Because we're not serving a dinner, So you end up being callous to it a little bit over time as being an entrepreneur, realizing that there's times where you're going to drive real close to the edge, and you got to be willing to take that risk and willing to sleep with that risk and go home and be able to sit with it and be like, well, it could happen. And if it does, well, then we'll deal with it when we get there.
Yeah, you do everything you
living
can.
in the abstract of your anxieties, you'll never get anywhere as a businessman. You just can't, as a small business, you can't do it. So you just got to be able to go, okay, I'm taking on all this risk, which is what I did again with Bella. And like, okay, I see the path through, and now we're going to just get up every day and grind.
You know where the winery is. You just got to know how to handle that sharp turn.
Right. You got to get the knowledge out there. Here's how you handle the sharp turn.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you do got to tip over. Hopefully you're not tipping over a fat ass pizza truck.
Hopefully not, man. Yeah.
Can we talk numbers?
Sure.
You seem to have at least 2 experiences buying businesses out. How does one price a business, and what do those negotiations look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, how to price like a food service sales business? There's no real formula. I mean, you talk to, like, when I sold my restaurant, I had a broker, and so the broker and I discussed with him, like, what do we take annual sales, triple it, divide it by some number. You talk to 5 different people that broker restaurants, they'll give you 5 different formulas. It's basic market dynamics, though. In the end of it, it's, I've got this pizza business. You're interested in it. I want to sell it. You want to buy it. Let's figure out the number. There's ways that you can look at it to have it make sense, and you're going to come up with these formulas between the buyer and the seller, but it's going to be your own formula ultimately, because what I perceive to be the value of my business, you're going to look at and go like, no, not valuable. So, for example, when I had the commissary here in 2014, I had one of my earlier tenants was a guy who did a lot of catering. He had a ton of equipment. He'd been in catering business for 20 years in the area. He'd gotten kicked out of his kitchen up the road. So he contacted me, wants to move in. Great. Okay. He's here for 3-4 years and decides like he doesn't want to cater anymore. He's going to get married and move to Ohio. So he's going to sell his catering business. Cool. He comes to me. You want to buy my catering business? Nope. He goes, really? You don't want any of my equipment? Nope. He goes, find somebody to buy it. So of course he can't find anybody who's going to pay him because he doesn't really own anything other than a bunch of used equipment and maybe some contacts, right? So I'm going to give you the fastball of this, but basically we got to the point where he goes, well, I'll sell you my equipment. Okay, sure. I'll negotiate with you on certain parts of your equipment. He goes, what do you want to take over my book of business? I said, I'm not going to give you any money. What I will give you is you turn it all over to me, and we'll have a spreadsheet that we can both look at. And every time I do a job that you referred to me for the first year, I'll give you 15% off the top. The second year, 10% off the top. The third year, 5% off the top. After that, it's mine. And I'm like, that's the best you're going to get from me because your business to me, sorry, dude, has no value. Like, I'll take these catering jobs that you've got lined up as long as they'll rebook with me, but I'm not going to give you anything until they pay.
Because it's all hypothetical.
Yeah, it's all hypothetical. And that's what you got to realize is that you as the seller, you're like, but I put all this work into this. I built this new walk-in. I painted these walls. I installed all these. Yeah, you did all that, but that's not the value of it. It's not what you put in. It's the value is from the purchaser side. So when I look at somebody who's going out of business because, they've got a food truck and they're not making enough money to actually pay themselves, and they're like, well, I paid $80,000 for my food truck. I've put in, $30,000 of equipment and I've been keeping it running for 5 years. Well, I think it's worth $200,000. And then they come to me and they go, will you give me $200,000 for it? I'm like, 30, maybe, if you want cash, and so it's all about that perceived value. So Scott and I had that negotiation where, he's telling me he's going, well, I've got the truck. It's a tangible asset. It's worth something, right? We can take the truck out, put it on the market. Somebody's going to buy it for a certain amount of money.
Sure.
So we got to just agree. What is that? And then we're going to look at all of his small wares equipment, and again, like I've made a living at this commissary of buying equipment from people going out of business. So, all these Cambros you see stacked around, like go buy a Cambro like that brand new. It's $35. I probably haven't paid more than $4 for any one of those, so you being in business, you got to be ready to take advantage of opportunity. And that's kind of been one of my mottos throughout my business career is like, I'm always waiting for the right opportunity.
Yeah.
And I saw that with Bella. So Scott was telling me, well, I think I might I've offered my employees to buy my business. Okay, let's talk about that. So he's telling me how much he's thinking he might sell it to him. And I go, why are you going to sell it to him for that amount? When I can write down on paper that your assets are almost worth the amount you're telling me that you're going to sell. But your book of business is worth something too. What do you have booked for the year, right? So that's sales that you've already got established. Well, what did you book last year? How many inquiries do you have coming in? So that becomes its own asset that's hard to define, but you have to define it in the negotiation. So he and I sat down and, I kind of threw a number at him at the early onset. And then after we started working through, NDAs, and I'm going to look inside your business. What are your operating costs?
What are your
sales? Right? Show me your tax returns. Bim, 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 bim. And we came up with just about the same number that I initially just ballparked.
Is the NDA still valid? You can't talk about that number? Or?
I'm not going to.
Okay.
Let's just say I could have bought a second home. So I'm hoping that eventually I will.
Okay. All right. But ultimately, though, and I'm glad we got there, because whatever that number was, you saw that it was worth it, but you also saw that you could add value in it. And that's when I really got excited about where our conversation could be. Later, we're going to go check out some of the ways you're adding value, but kind of give us a primer to what that looks like.
Yeah. So through being friends with Scott and conversational and being in the position to really see the inside of his business, without being a part of it, I just watched it for years. So I see that, he accepts a wedding on a Saturday and he's got a rehearsal dinner on a Friday and they go out and vend on a Thursday. And then they leave the truck sitting for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And talking to him, I realized it's not because he's not getting asked to do more things. And he's also got not just the truck, but the original oven that was on a trailer that he built, then the second one that he built. So he's got equipment sitting on the sideline that's not being used. And hey, Scott, are you getting an inquiry? Could you book? Oh, I could book 2 weddings or 3 on a Saturday. Why don't you? Because I can't be there. Because I don't have the staff to do it. Okay. So I'm looking at this from the purchase side going okay, so, we're going to settle on a purchase for the business that is existing. But there's this whole other business sitting underneath it that I see that he's not capitalizing on by saying, yeah, I can put another crew together. Yeah, I can put a third crew together so we can do 3 weddings or we can do 4 weddings. And then the other side of it that we're going to see when we go up to Crooked Lane. So leading into, before I started my negotiations with Scott to buy him out, I had gotten this connection with Crooked Lane Brewery, realizing that they had a specific need to be able to do food inside, basically inside their own company without having to create a whole kitchen and a whole restaurant, because they couldn't get food trucks. And I could see this from the outside that this is a hard thing. If you're a brewery and you got 20 guests in there, well, to you, that's a good amount of people. You got 20 people in here and they're hungry. Right. And if we could feed them, they'll buy another beer.
Yeah.
But if I roll a food truck to your place and you only have 20 people, I'm like, this isn't enough.
Right.
It's not enough to sustain a kitchen, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you bridge that gap? So Crooked Lane and I had started on a program already where I was going to help them design a kitchen inside of their place where I could feed them with, some basically 90% prepared foods that their bartenders could basically slap together, or say a tri-tip sandwich or a panini or a salad, that we've got all the stuff here for you. And at the time, because of Scott and I's closeness, I was incorporating pizzas. I'm like, I'm going to get pizzas. I'm going to get dough from this guy. We're going to make you guys pizzas. We're going to figure this out. And so the whole thing started morphing, and then it gained a lot of speed once Scott and I started talking about I'm taking him over. It was like, oh yeah, well, now I'm really going to go with this. And Scott and I had, throughout the process of me purchasing, kind of really game planned out this whole, if I can get the PFR, Processed Food Registry with the state of California, to package these pizzas and put them into breweries, that could be huge. That could be a whole lot of extra volume going through the building. That is what, any business needs, but especially me, because I'm not Scott, right? I just basically promised Scott a bunch of money. So I've got a loan now that I got to pay. Scott didn't have a loan, right? He had a loan when he built the truck, and, not nearly what I'm paying.
Sure.
So I've got this additional overhead that he doesn't have. So I've got to make more sales outside of just the picking up the stuff he's turning down. I really got to crank this thing up to where the payments of my loan don't feel huge.
I feel that.
So that's the goal. So that's how we came up with the frozen business. The frozen pizza concept is to get our pizzas everywhere. So the goal is like, can we sell 3,000 pizzas a week between catering, vending, and frozen pizzas?
That's excellent. And we're definitely going to dive more into those frozen pizzas when we go check out the breweries. One of the things that you had in your mind was, I have all these opportunities once I buy this business. So I guess we got to get you to the point of where you bought the business first. What was day one like when he handed over the keys to you?
Yeah, so day one, I inherited two key employees of his, couple young guys. Yep.
Was that it? Like, did you only want those two employees and say, I'm gonna take the rest?
So their operation model was Scott and the two lead guys, and then everybody else was super part-time coming to help when we have events.
Got it.
So these guys were the only ones who were really on regular payroll, or like regular hours, let's just say.
Sure.
These guys were full-time workers. So one of them was kind of like the pizza chef. The other guy like had the phone and the keys to booking stuff, right? So I'm looking at these guys, and at a certain point in negotiations, like we had considered, do we do it as some sort of a partnership at the very beginning of negotiations? Because, he had been talking to them about would they like to purchase a business. And then, my name gets in, and I'd known these guys for years. I mean, one of the guys, like I've hired him for, I think 5 jobs in the last 10 years, between consulting, my restaurant, catering with me.
Cool.
I introduced him to Scott. So like, we got history and we're friends, so it was a lot like, guys, like I like what you do. Like I'm turnkeying this for you guys. I'm going to get you more support and more help. And so how are we going to do that? So day one for me was like pretty natural. It was like, you guys just keep doing what you're doing. But, I want to be the guy that comes in and makes it easier and better and bigger for you. And I'd seen this kind of operation when I was back in wine sales, like Gallo back in the early 2000s was going in and buying small wineries, like mom and pop wineries, but they wouldn't like just fire everybody, right? They would come in and they'd say, okay, dude, like, so you've got this winery, you guys make nice wine, but you don't have distribution. You don't have modern equipment. You don't have, the ability to ramp and scale because you don't have, the money,
support, the resources,
So I've watched Gallo do this, and I'm like, to some extent on a way smaller scale, like that's what I want to do with this business. Is like what you guys are doing, we can all recognize is working. It's killing it. So I want to come in and bring in extra bodies, bring in extra resources, and let's throw gasoline on this fire and let's go. So that was the goal. So day one, it was pretty turnkey. It was kind of like, just keep doing what you're doing. I'm going to watch and I'm going to hang back and I'm going to see where can I push some more help. And I'm going to get you guys like, take this person out and train him, and take this guy out and train him.
Yeah, that's an owner mindset right there.
Yep.
When you have the ability to step back and not like, oh shit, kitchen fire's on, I got to get cooking.
Right.
You don't have that opportunity to see where the inefficiencies are.
Right.
I totally get that. How many, could you say how many bookings Bella Familia had in like prior to 2023, like in like a year back?
So I would say that Scott would probably do around 40, 50 weddings a year.
And then like
vending, like the truck would probably roll out 3 days, 4 days on a busy week. So 3, 4 events, market every Saturday. So maybe call that a fifth. So maybe like 5 a week, right? So when the one thing I did immediately change was like I told the guy with the phone and the booking, I'm like, take everything. If we have an oven, you book it. If they have 50 people and we have an oven available, book it. And he's like, well, we don't have staff. I'm like, don't worry about it. I'll have staff.
Okay.
Like, just don't worry about that.
Okay.
He did, of course. Like he was
worried.
out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So he wasn't quite booking everything, but it's all right. We got through that too.
So
I would say Scott probably on a busy week was doing 5 unique events, whether it's vending, catering, wedding, whatever.
And so how many more did you do the first year?
We took Scott's sales and doubled them first year.
Does that equate to double the events too?
Yeah, at least.
More or less.
At least, probably a little bit more.
So
because not every event's a home run, right? So
sure.
if you're Scott and you're running the pizza business, you're like, okay, yeah, we're gonna sell a wedding every Saturday in May, minimum 1. So you can kind of cherry pick. You'd be like, somebody goes, oh, I got 75 people. We're looking for just pizza. No, sorry, we're not gonna do it. Yeah. And then somebody calls and goes, well, we got 200 people and we want pizza and appetizers and salad. Yeah, go. That's the one we're doing.
Got it.
So the difference for us when I took over was like, well, I'll take the 75 also. I want the 200, but I'll take the 75 also. So I'll do them. Let's do them both.
To fill in the gap for people, Scott had not just the trailer, but also a smaller truck.
So he's got the truck. Then there's 2 trailers. So
2 trailers.
So in his evolution in 2007, he started with this, we call it little black trailer. Little black trailer, you can cook, a good pizza cook's putting about 6 pizzas in there, maybe 7 or 8 if you squeeze. And so like that trailer now we'll send out to gigs up to about 100 people. If we need to, we'll send it to 100 plus, but the floor gets, the floor struggles to maintain temp, with that kind of volume. So it's generally better to keep that one down around like the 80 person party. So he outgrew that one within a couple of years and he went to a larger trailer. The larger trailer's got the larger oven on it. So that oven comfortably cooking about 8 pizzas, even 10 you can put in there. That one, the floor stays a lot longer. So that oven's totally capable of doing the 150, 200 people. And then he built the truck when in around the year 2014, 2015, Placer County started cracking down saying, no, you can't do farmer's market out of a tent anymore. You got to have a food truck with, hand washing,
Bells
all
and
that.
whistles.
Yeah, everything. So he went out and did this carbon container and it was very stressful for him at the time, as I recall. But he was able to basically keep his model going because like they were saying, well, we'll let you do the farmer's market, but you're not taking your tent set up to a brewery anymore. It's got to be an enclosed food truck. So he got that one rolling, and that oven in the truck is about the same size as the one on the trailer.
Okay.
So we got 2 that can really handle
Volume.
max capacity volume.
Okay. And then you have all the equipment already.
Yep.
You have the inquiries, but you sort of alluded to it earlier. Scott didn't have the staff.
Right.
Where did you get staff?
So, through my years of business and catering, like, I have to flex staff up. Like, my catering business was never designed to be the busiest catering business. I was more like Scott, like, yeah, I'll do your 200 person party. Heck yeah, because I got a lot of margin in that. And, just being in the community and in the business, in the commissary, like, I kind of always had phone numbers of people to call. Like, hey, I need you just for 6 hours on Saturday.
Okay.
Come out and help me jam.
Okay.
So I'd already worked with a bunch of people. I've been in the restaurant business for years, in food business. So like when it's time for like, I have a full-time job for somebody, like I got a Rolodex of people to call.
Got it.
So I can immediately flex up.
But these are part-time gigs, contracted workers. How do you?
Well, they were until we take over the pizza business, because now instead of doing 2-3 caterings a month, like I can't hire anybody full-time for 2 or 3 caterings a month.
Yeah.
But if I work it myself, like I make good money. But no, now if Scott had 5 on a busy week, I got 5 on a slow week. So now I've got the amount of business. Like, I took my sales, and by adding Scott's sales, I 10 times my sales.
Shit.
So by 10 times your sales overnight, you can afford to grow overnight. So if I would have said, okay, I'm going to take my Gourmet Garage catering company and build that one to, $1 million in sales in a year and $2 million in 2 years, well, the sales aren't there first. It's chicken and egg time. I need to make sales, but I need to be able to actually deliver on them. So then I'm going to need staff. So how do I hire staff when I don't have the sales yet? So by looking at the opportunity I had with Scott's business, I was like, well, the sales will be there overnight. So I can have staff here overnight because I have the resources to do that.
So you hired people overnight. You had a Rolodex of people. Did you have to incentivize them more than the market rate to get them here overnight? Like, was it easy to hire people? Like, I don't know. It's hard to imagine that people are just willing to come on a whim, even if you have their contact.
Sure. So couple things there. One is, my opinion of this business is that we are a people business. We're people first, because our guests are all people and my employees are all people. So if I want my employees to be the best representation of the company to my clients, who are all the people, they need to be good people. So if I say, dude, I'll give you a minimum wage, come in and work your ass off, you're probably not giving it your all, and you're probably not the happiest employee. So yeah, we start people at an elevated rate. So even before California decided that, fast food workers should be $20 an hour, like we were already there. Like if you came in and you knew nothing about pizza, nothing about working, but you were willing to come in and give us effort, we'll start you at 20 an hour. As soon as you start building skills, we'll move you up. And it's again, because I'm not in a static environment where, I've got to be open a certain amount of time guaranteed. I'm open when the business is there. So when you call me for a wedding, that's when I'm open. So I can kind of set my pricing to fit my costs with your wedding as long as you agree on that. So if I say, okay, well, you've got a wedding for 100 people. I want to charge you, just to pick a round number, $5,000 for your 100 people to do whatever we agree on as parameters. Mm-hmm. Well, now I can bottom line out my budget. So if I want to send the best people on the job, I can afford to pay them.
Right.
If I got to pay somebody 30, 35 an hour because they're, the person that makes the party happen and the smiling personality, like, let's do it. I put it in the budget. I already know it's in there. So it's really I invest in my people so that they'll invest back in us and put the product out there that we want. It's the same thing with starting with great ingredients to make great finished food. If you're cutting corners at your ingredient level, your food's going to be shitty. If you're cutting corners at your employee level, your service is going to be shitty.
I totally agree. With these catering events that I do, I pay my people top dollar, I would say. I think it comes out to like 35 to 40. Whether we get tipped or not, that's what they get, right? And that's because I know that I can't do this job without them. But I also know that what I'm getting from the client is already going to cover that and some, right? And like, I feel like I don't have to pay them, but I know that I would be shit without them. Yep. And like, because I do this so far and few between, I really need them to be there for me when I need them. Yep. Versus like having regularly scheduled things. So I don't tell people you got to pay people 40, but you do got to pay them good enough to make it worth their time.
Yeah, especially in the scenario where you're at, which is kind of like where I existed for many years with my catering business. Like, I don't need you all the time. I don't need you barely any of the time.
Yeah.
But I need you for like 7 very critical hours on a Saturday. So what does it cost for me to get you in the building?
Exactly. When I need you,
that cost is the cost.
Exactly.
And it makes sense to be like, yeah, I'll give you $300 to show up for me on a Saturday, because the next time I call you, you'll be like, yeah, I want $300. I'm coming in.
I want you to prioritize me, and whatever number we feel good about for you to prioritize me, and I know that you're going to come, that's the number I'm willing to pay.
100%.
Okay. Final question as we wrap up here. You were not selective about the events when you first started off. But then as you grow the business, I imagine you have that selective power building and, wanting to enforce itself more and more. Are you now turning down gigs more regularly? Are you saying no to things that Scott said yes to, or, where are you at in the business today?
So twofold answer to that. One is, if it's a catering job, I'm not turning them down.
Period.
Pretty much, period. If I have an oven for the pizza to cook in, like, I'm not turning you down. I might give you parameters that you don't like and you don't agree to. So in a sense, I'm turning you down. Okay, you got 40 people. Okay, well, a year ago, 40 people, I'd say, well, just spend $1,200. We'll come out and feed you. Now it's 15, because I'm like, it takes us some work to get a crew together, even for 40 people, to get all the bells and whistles going. So I'm not turning it down, but I'm upping the ante, if you will. On the vending side, where we've got 2 or 3 companies we work with that line up, food truck, things like, oh, we need 3 food trucks at this event. It's a concert, whatever. On that side, last year, I would basically book just about everything they threw my direction, because I was using it as a training ground. So if we had a Tuesday and we're going to go out and vend, and I know it's not going to be busy, I'll send one experienced guy with a couple of green people, like, work them. They need to, get practice stretching dough, running a cash register. They need the slow vending to make that happen. So now that we've kind of made it through that zone where, we've got kind of this core of people that we can flex in and out when we're busy with, that have that experience, I don't need to send the truck out on a Tuesday to not really make money. Like, if it's not going to make money, everybody stay home. Let's keep the truck here, not put the miles on.
Yeah.
Basically not the miles on the whole machine.
Sure.
What we ran through last year by doing that, where it was like, everything we take it, everything, because I want experience for the crew.
Want the reps.
It's just, and it just, everybody gets really tired. So if you can boil it down to where like, even like people that want to work, 5 days a week, at some point they go like, dude, I don't know why you sent us on Tuesday. It wasn't busy. And I'm like, well, would you rather be at home? And sometimes they're like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, but you want to work 40 hours. So there's a little push and pull with the staff in terms of that. But mostly what you find is like our experienced staff, like they don't want to go on the slow jobs anymore. They want to go out there where it's busy, where they're being tested. So we're trying to line it up that way more.
So what are they doing with their time? Because that's like, if I need 40 hours a week, but I also want to work the busy schedule, like, am I making up the 8 hours at a different job? Am I working on a passion project?
So right now, I mean, we've only got, 3 or 4 full timers, and we're able to keep them busy, right now. But that's also part of why we developed into the frozen pizza brewery partnership, because, hey, like here's hours on Monday and Tuesday that don't exist if we're just relying on events. But on Monday and Tuesday, we got to make 300 pizzas. And guess who can make 300 pizzas? People that work events. Guess who can make them fast? People that work events.
Hell yeah.
So it's a way that I can flex them in to where it's like, no, I don't got to send the truck out to not do enough some sales. We can just do it all right here in house. You guys can have, a 4, 6, 8 hour shift, and it helps you get hours. It helps us grow and make sales.
Perfect.
One of the things pizza makers spend the most money on is cheese. Every time I have a catering event, cheese is my biggest ingredient cost. But what if I told you there's a cheese company out there that lets you earn cash back for every pound of cheese purchased? I'm talking about Baccio Cheese. And their Gold Club Rewards members receive their rewards card every month that can be used wherever Visa is accepted. So the more cheese you buy, the more you can earn. Literally, you get paid to use Baccio Cheese. Now that is cool. Learn more at Baccio Cheese using the link in the show notes.
So we're at Crooked Lane.
Yep.
Walk me through this, because when you had first told me about the business that you have serving breweries, I expected these ovens, maybe a freezer of pizzas.
Yep.
But when we come in, I see like a full-on
Little
working
mini
station.
kitchen.
A little mini kitchen, exactly.
Yep.
So what?
So that is what we have here. So Crooked Lane was kind of the inception to a degree of this whole, frozen pizza model of what we're doing with the breweries. So you want the long story? You ready for that?
I'm ready for the long story, but I'm going to butt in when I have questions.
Okay. So the long story was about 2 years ago, I was down at the commissary working on some stuff outside. I was painting the top of my walk-in, which is sitting outside, with some highly reflective paint, trying to basically like reduce the impact of the heat of the summer on how hot the walk-in box gets. So I'm up there, I'm wearing some shoes that don't have the greatest tread. I got my ladder set up, and I'm just finishing up on the top, and I'm stoked to be getting done. And I'm going to go home and get my kids and drive them up to Auburn to hang out with my aunt and uncle while I go play disc golf or do something fun. So I'm coming down the ladder.
Disc golf place from here.
It's like 15 minutes maybe up the road.
Gotcha.
So I'm coming down the ladder for the last time with my paint buckets, and I slip and I start to fall.
No.
Yeah, no. And I fall. I fell off the ladder, eat shit into like the cart where I had things set up, hit the ground hard, and I'm like laying there. I'm like, oh, I think I'm all right. Just give me a minute. So I go to get up. I'm like, oh, I can't move, man. Like something's wrong with my right side. So eventually, like I get up, I'm able to like limp around, clean up, go home, get the kids, drive them up. But like I can't walk, so I'm not disc golfing today. So I call a cousin of mine. I go, hey, my kids are hanging out, with their aunt and uncle. You're up here in Auburn. You want to catch a beer? Let's go over to Crooked Lane. So we come over here to Crooked Lane. And I asked him, hey, do you got any crutches?
Yeah.
Because I knew like he always gets injured. He plays tennis. So he's like, yeah, I got crutches. I'll bring them to you. All right. Yeah, I'm going to need them for like just a couple days. So he comes over here and we sit down and we're having a beer, we're chatting, and I meet Brian, who we'll meet in a minute. And Brian's the manager here. And somehow we get on the topic of food, and he's going, oh, I'm having all this trouble getting these food trucks. And I'm like, oh, I know a bunch of food trucks because I have this commissary. Like, let me get your information. And we just keep talking. And I look back at the bar and I'm looking at the space back here. And I'm like, you got a lot of space back there. Like, why don't you guys do food here? Like, I could help you out.
What was here before?
This was just all back bar. So they had like some of the music and stuff set up here. What else was here? You want to introduce Brian? Should we pull him?
We're gonna have like another set of taps, and
Yeah, come on.
it was just kind of storage space basically. So
Yeah.
we had no other food options other than food trucks. So it really limited like our food offerings. And
Yeah.
definitely when people come have beer, they want to have some food with it. And,
Right.
So made a better use of the space.
So he pitched you. It was a smart decision. Right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I know. Moving towards having food all the time has been a game changer for us. Definitely.
I like that.
Yeah.
We'll come back to you in a second once we get talking about the pizza. All right.
Sure.
Thanks for your time.
Cool.
Yeah.
So Brian and I start talking, and I start going, well, I got this commissary. I go, I also do catering. We do food. I go, I could help you design a kitchen setup. Oh, and I got this guy making pizzas, because I hadn't yet started negotiating with Scott on a takeover or anything like that.
What year was this? Like
So this is 2.5 years, almost a full 2 years ago.
when you
So
broke the
2022.
or
Yep.
when you fractured your leg?
Yep.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 2022, summer of 22, right about this time. It was in July. So then I meet, he introduces me to the owners, and we start talking about like, hey, so like here's kind of the things I think would be possible for your space. And by the way, one of my tenants is this top quality pizza company. And, I'm like, I'm going to talk to them about, getting some ingredients and stuff from them. And we're going to help, we can do pizzas, we can do sandwiches, we can do salads and all kinds of little things here. So it just that was where we started. And then of course, 6 months later, Scott and I are negotiating me taking over his entire company. And I'm, in the application process with the state of California to get a PFR, processed food registration, which is what you need to do what we do with the pizzas. Or even, to some degree, like selling food up here that's kind of 90% done and they're assembling. Like the county didn't have a problem with us doing that with our caterers permit. They didn't need the state thing, but for the pizzas, they wanted us, because we're vacuum sealing and it's really a packaged product. They wanted us to go through the state registry. And that takes a process of anywhere from 6 months to a year, just depending on, how complicated your project is.
Wow. So you get all of this set up. You start doing sandwiches, salads, I'm guessing?
Sandwiches and salads, yep. So they got a panini press. We did some, in the winter months up here, we'll do like chili and soups. When it's 112 out, nobody's like, give me a bowl of chili.
That's what I would order. No, I'm just
Right.
kidding. When did the pizzas come to play? Was it
So the pizzas were part of the original concept.
okay?
And then we were really kind of negotiating this and being diligent and deliberate about the design of what they could do back here, how much space they would need, what equipment they would need. So it wasn't a real fast rollout, which is kind of counter to my entrepreneurism, where I'm like, let's go, we got a great idea, jump on it.
It is a
But
great
we
idea.
really did it more deliberate here, and we took our time. So by the time we were getting closer to, coming on board, it was clear that I was going to be taking over the Bella Familia business, so that I was going to own that. So I was able to get my PFR lined up to where, as they were starting to get equipment and build out done, I was going to be ready to go on my end with supplying them the products and stuff. And we weren't sure when it first opened, whether it was going to be like, 50% pizzas, 50% everything else, or, how the sales were going to shape. I had an idea, the pizza, it's super simple. It's very easy for bartenders to handle. It's also top quality, as we're going to see. And very popular. We're standing here talking pizza because people love pizza.
People love food, right?
Right.
But also like pizza and beer, come on, go hand in hand, right?
Yeah, it's a perfect pair.
What would you say, like you're supplying the pizzas here.
Yep.
How many pizzas are you dropping off each week, each month? How does that work?
So in June, these guys were starting to hit right around 200 in sales. July, because we've been experiencing this massive heat wave, it's sucked back down to probably around 150 to 175. So a month, yeah. Or no, a week, sorry.
A week?
Yeah,
Okay.
a week. Yeah, a week. So they're definitely doing some volume, and it's moving. Like they're, on a busy night, they're selling 30, 40 pizzas. And that's even with still having food trucks coming up. So they'll have a food truck parked out there on a Friday night and still be, crushing 4 to 6 pizzas in the oven for a couple hours going along.
And then do you still supply all the food that's not pizza, or have they gone?
So they've been able to, they kind of jumped on it and took that. Like we worked with them for several months
just to get it set up.
Yeah, just kind of like, here's what we can do for you. And they sort of just started organically taking control of it, which is really a testament to their management, to Brian, who we just heard briefly from. But like they just decided to own it from the start. And I think they've done really well with it. So this place is more unique in the world of what we're doing with our frozen pizza, because we're not going to replicate this. We're going to keep it simple and focused on like, here's our pizza product, here's how you use it, here's how we do it.
Versus starting at little kitchens at different breweries, right? Let's focus on the pizza. So tell me about the pizzas that you're making here. What is I'm trying to think if we would go through that at the commissary, but what?
Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah. What are the pizzas that you're supplying here, and how does it differ from the menu that you do for catering?
So the catering menu that we supply, for weddings or whatnot, like, again, we kind of limit it from, the everything you could ever have in the world, because it just makes it simple. Like if you go out to eat dinner at TGI Fridays and you get that menu with like 18 pages, it's really
a million.
It's
items.
really too much.
Yeah.
So our catering menu, we limit it to about 12 pizzas, 12 to 15 pizzas. Here, we're really featuring 5 pizzas, because we're really just kind of trying to like basically focus to hit like the big things. And the other capacity, the other issue with that is storage capacity. So you've got product in-house that's pre-prepared. All you got to do is pull it out and go. Well, if you want to have a menu of 10 items, well, you've got to have enough of each item to make sure if you get a run on one, you can go. So we've kept it to 5 pizzas right now. 5. What are the 5 selections? So we go, there's plain cheese. Obviously, like families come in here, kids, you're going to want the plain cheese. We got a pepperoni. We've got one we call the Chicago. It's sausage and pepper. Then we've got one called the Med, and it's a pesto, red pepper, and Kalamata olive. And we've got one we call the Yardbird, which is pesto, chicken, so marinated chicken, and artichoke hearts. So we kind of cover a little bit of the gamut. Like we've got, a couple things that are, vegetarian that are options. We've got a chicken, we've got a sausage, we've got the pepperoni, which you're going to have. So right now that spread seems to be working pretty well, and we're seeing about even sell through on a lot of them.
Did you have to go through changes to get through that spread, or was that the initial?
That was
menu?
Kind of the initial, like, with these guys coming on first, we sort of worked with them with like, here's 3 pizzas. And then the next week it was, here's a 4th. And then it was like, oh, we should have something with chicken. And we quickly developed that one. And the sell-through has just been so consistent that we haven't had to tweak with that.
Yeah.
We do want to add some options, as especially we expand out to other locations to where we can have, like you can pick from this, this 7, 8, 10 options, but we recommend that you only stock 5.
That makes sense.
So that you make sure you have enough to get through a week, right? Because we don't want to have to deliver every day or every other day. That starts hurting the business model.
What does that delivery schedule look like?
Right now, we're trying to keep it to once a week with both of these breweries. If they get a run because they're close.
And when you say run, like
if they get a run on, if they get a rush on a pizza, it's like, something happens on a Thursday, and instead of selling 15, they sell 40. Now they're worried about going into the weekend without pizzas. They'll call me and we'll figure it out. It's a 10-minute drive from our shop. So I'm like, I'll shoot up there with some. And guess what? When I get there, have a beer for me. Right?
There you go.
That's your delivery cost.
Yeah.
So we've been able to work with them. As we expand out and get more serious and bigger, it's going to be a little bit more of an issue, but it might be a situation where it's like, all right, you can have more, but you send somebody down to pick them up, but it's, again, like we're in the customer service mode here. So we want to work with our customer. Like we want you to sell the pizzas. If you don't have them, you can't sell them.
Right.
So
you're incentivized as well for them selling out.
Exactly.
Right. But at the same time, as you imagine this thing scaling,
right,
being able to drop off 40 pizzas might hurt your business like on that day.
Yep. Yeah. So that's one of the issues that we've already run up that we'll see at Knee Deep. When we get up there, we'll take a look at their freezer, and their freezer has a capacity of about 90.
What's it here?
Here they've got about the same size freezer, and the capacity again up here is around 90 that they can fit in that freezer. But they also have another freezer where they can store backstop. So that's what I've been talking to Knee Deep about. Like, hey, you guys aren't going through 80, 90 pizzas like you were in February. You're going through 150. So that necessitates 2 deliveries a week. What if you guys invest a little bit, get another freezer for backstock, and now we can fill that freezer. Now you've got capacity for a week. So I can show up and drop off 150, 200 pizzas. You've got the space to store them, and now we can do a weekly reset. So what we do with Knee Deep and Crooked Lane right now is we just run on a par. Like when we reset you to full, how many pizzas do you want to have? You want to have 75 pepperonis. You want to have 50 cheese. You want to have, 65 Chicago. So we'll just check the inventory the day before delivery. What do you got? And then we're going to bring it back up to that par level. And so we'll deliver to that.
Okay. So we got a pizza being made right
pizza
here.
Going in.
The camera probably saw it, but it was as simple as cutting open this packaging right here. A pair of scissors. I'll toss it for you if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This is vacuum sealed?
Yep.
All right. I've heard of and then they pop it in the oven.
Yep.
How many minutes?
Directly on the racks. You just set the timer for 8 minutes. What our experience is anywhere from 7 to 9 really tends to be,
Sweet spot.
kind of the sweet spot. And it's
550
really,
degrees.
it's fat. Yeah, it's as hot as you can get these ovens. They cook to, on average, around 525 is really kind of what we noticed with having oven thermometers in there. Is it sort of holds about 525 and then set all the way up.
And there's a convection setting.
And it's convection.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
And these are self-contained, so they're self-venting, so they don't need to have a hood. So we're able to get, it really made it a convenient model. Like it's 2 pieces of equipment, a cutting board, and some plates.
So it's ventless or
Yep.
Okay.
It's self-venting.
Self-venting, sorry.
Yep.
Okay. Wow. And they're tiny. They just fit on the counter.
And they fit on the counter. They're a half sheet pan size. So in each of these, we've got 4 racks. So you can cook 4 at a time. So if she would have got an order for 4 pizzas, boom, load up 4. Well, now she's going to set that timer for probably 9 minutes. And you're setting the timer for when the earliest you think this pizza could be ready. And so what you're going to do is come back and visually spot it. And what we're really looking at with that is the center of the pizza. Once the center's cooked and the center of the cheese is melted, then the pizza's done. And what will happen is the outside will start to get that brown crisp and sometimes a little burn, a little char on the edge. Not different from what we would experience in the wood fire oven, to be honest.
Wow.
But that's what we're looking for.
That's impressive. Talk to me about the packaging, because then I've heard of people having to get shrink wrap or atmospheric something. Do you know what I'm talking about? No.
Not going to speak to that specifically. Okay. It really depends on what you're packaging and what the method is. So our packaging is real basic. It's a vacuum seal with a produced on and sell by date. And that was all worked out with our local county health, that they knew what we're doing, that we got a PFR through the state, that we can, basically do this packaging. And what they wanted to see on it was really just, when did we make it? When does it need to be expired by? And they didn't give us the parameters on the expiration. What we did is we tested, we made pizzas, we dated them, we threw them in the freezer, we pull one out every week, cook it. Is it the quality we want? Cook it. Is it the quality we want after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks? So we put a 2-month expiration date on it because we aren't finding any drop off in quality so long as the pizza doesn't start to freezer burn. And if our freezers are in good shape, which is why, as we'll see at Knee Deep, we're going to the model of, we own the freezer, we rent it to you, because we're going to come up and visually spot, are you getting ice buildups? If you're getting ice buildups, then we're going to start getting freezer burn. So then we're going to want to take that freezer out and bring you a new one that doesn't have the ice buildup.
Smart. And
just swap all your gear in there, and we'll take this one back. We'll do anything we need to clean it up, fix it up, and make sure that it's running properly so that you're not experiencing any spoilage.
Do you own these ovens?
Here at Crooked Lane, we do not, because again, these guys came on first. So the whole plan was they buy the equipment with our consultation, and then we train them on how to use the equipment. We supply the food. At Knee Deep, we'll see, yes, we do own the equipment. We're going to take one of their ovens today to take it back and clean it. And that's the model going forward is, the ovens are going to get a good deep cleaning every month or 2. We're going to take them back to the home base, temp them, make sure that everything's working properly, and swap them out.
Yeah. And it's not really about it is a lucrative business model to be in the property owning, leasing, but it's also about protecting your brand, protecting the quality, right? If an operator, not Crooked Lane or Knee Deep, obviously, but later down the line just starts to say whatever, about the pizza, then it affects you because people know they're buying a Bella Familia slice of pizza.
Yeah, and I know from my restaurant operations, like, people eat with their eyes first. So if they walk into your restaurant or your establishment and things look dirty, they start thinking my food is going to be compromised. They're a lot like cattle. You don't spook them. You do everything you can to not spook them. So keeping things clean, keeping them look nice, that's all feeding into how is that going to taste when I get it on the plate.
What's one mistake? You've been doing pizza for a couple of years now.
Yep, with this iteration. Yeah.
But you've been in the food and hospitality industry for many, many years.
Yep.
And so what's one mistake that you've experienced personally that you would want others to avoid themselves?
I'd say like my usual answer to that is and it's kind of disappointing, but it's almost like a series of small mistakes, and it usually revolves around like, I'm just getting going, I'm very excited about my business, and I need this refrigerator to make it happen. I'm gonna go buy it.
Yeah.
And it's the rush to solve what might not actually be yet a problem with equipment that you don't necessarily need.
Right.
And it's something that since I started in 2007, I periodically still do, where it's like, well, why did I dump money into this piece of equipment or that piece of equipment? That kind of comes with entrepreneurism to me, is like, you're thinking so far ahead that you're kind of resolving problems you haven't gotten to yet, that you're thinking beyond where you're actually at today and tomorrow. So that's kind of the thing, like I would say, like, tamp down the aggressiveness of, just I got to have all this right now, but really kind of work within your means for as long as you can. And that even comes to like personnel, with the jump that we made from being just Gourmet Garage into being Bella Familia and Gourmet Garage, like, there was a huge jump in sales that was immediate. So we also answered that question with a huge jump in payroll. And it's not always the right move. We're not always putting the right person in the right spot. So being really flexible and really fast to change on personnel and to change directions, that's the advantage of being small like what we are. And that's like the area to not make the mistake, is don't become too attached to the way you're doing it or the people you're doing it with. If you got to make a change, you can, and you better do it fast.
I laughed earlier because I'm in the process of quitting my job, as you've probably heard.
I've heard.
And I was talking to my wife the other day, and we're like, what are we going to do if this happens? What if our income goes down 50%? Should we make this lifestyle change or this lifestyle change?
Right.
Should we move? Should we buy another house here instead? And then I had to step back 10 steps and was like, dude, I'm not even there yet. Let me focus on what I can control now.
Yep.
And not put that undue burden on myself. Right? Because then it's causing me to act, I don't know, unclearly. And so I totally get what you're saying there. And I appreciate what you said about, kind of keeping things small at first, because it makes you able to pivot. I've definitely heard of really good examples from businesses who they say that the world of technology is going to be disrupted by companies of maybe less than 10 people, because they are lean, they're mean, and they're dedicated, and they don't have a lot of bureaucracy holding them down from progress. Yeah. So I think there's something to be learned about what you said and what these big tech companies, or what these, they're people who want to grow the tech world, but they're sitting from the sidelines and saying, this is how we break through, is by smaller companies.
Yeah, it's just, you definitely got to be able to really flex with the amount of business that you have. So, being able to identify the part-time worker that doesn't really want to work for you, but will on a Saturday, if the money's
needed
right.
most.
Yeah, when you actually need the person, and then they go back to their job as a paint teller. And that's what I've done for my career overall, has been, really my most successful hires is when I'm hiring somebody because their personality fits in with what we're doing.
Right.
It's not the skills. I've hired for skills, and those are the people that I always have to fire because they already know it all. But the people that come in with just the right attitude, then we get them the skills. And those are the people that end up really kind of helping us shape, the event and really making the event happen for the guests. And that's what gets us the referrals and the callbacks, and that's what you really want is, it's just like when I had the restaurant, like the answer to how was dinner, it's either it was good, it was great, or I'll be back. Anything short of that and something's wrong, right? If they go, it was fine, it wasn't, right? So you're always like, okay, what happened?
Yeah.
What's wrong? What can I do to fix this for you going forward? So it's all about having that where, if you call us out to do your pizza wedding, well, when you have a baby, you're going to call us to do the first birthday party too.
Yeah.
100%. We always got to be getting that repeat business.
Yeah, and it's hard to teach people to care sometimes. And like the people who care,
You're not going to teach them to care. They're going to care or they're not.
Right.
So if you're hiring somebody and you're like, well, this guy's got the skills, but he sure seems to have a salty attitude.
and that salty attitude is going to cost your business so much.
At some point.
At some point, it's going to cost you that repeat business. It's going to cost you pissing off the wrong person.
Even internal fractures. If you send out a crew of 4 people and one of them's got a shit attitude on the day, it brings the team down.
Yeah, it's a virus.
So you really got to watch and be real careful about that. And you never know, it can crop up from somebody who's been a good employee. But once you've got a track record with somebody and something's happening, maybe it's in their personal life or whatnot, then you got a chance to address that and make a correction. But if you can tell from the outset that you're bringing somebody in that's kind of already got that shit attitude, you better think about that, because you can't afford it when you're small. It's not like I got 100 positions I got to fill and I need somebody who can fog a mirror. No, I need like the right people in the right spots.
Yeah, that's excellent advice, especially for those who are starting out.
Yeah.
Final question for you. There is no right or wrong answer to this question. What's good dough?
What's good dough, baby? Well, freshly made, using the top quality ingredients. I mean, that's really our mantra through the catering side to the pizza side is, when we took over from Scott, we looked at how they made the dough, how they made the sauce, what cheese are they using, what pepperonis are they using, what sausage are they using, are they making their own? And we basically attacked each one of those elements and we said, okay, well, there's a cost benefit analysis to everything you do. So dough recipe, Scott had it dialed, killer stuff. We're using some of the best flour that we can possibly buy. The quantities are right in. So we didn't really need to mess with that. Sauce-wise, definitely needed to mess with that. I won't go into details, but we took our time and we think that what we're doing on the sauce side now is a dramatic step up. But it's all about that balance of quality ingredients and what's going to affect the end product. That's where you make good dough, because you make a good quality top product that people can tell you didn't skimp on ingredients. And again, what happens? Repeat customer. And our business, even though we're mobile and even though we do a lot of weddings, it really is repeat business or referral business. We don't do a ton of advertising. So we get people that go like, I was at my friend's wedding and you guys did the food and it was amazing. You know why it was amazing? Because we care about the ingredients. Because we start at the very start with the ingredients and we make sure that we're on point. And if our pizza costs 50 cents more to put on the plate than we could make it cost by chinsing out on the ingredients, we're doing that.
Oh yeah. Thank you for that. And
Sure.
thank you for all the lessons today. I really
Right on.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. My conversation with Matt from Bella Familia. Dude, Matt, it's amazing how the world works. From a slip off of a ladder to revolutionizing the way people sell food to breweries. Congratulations, my friend. I'm excited to see where this pizza journey takes you. Keep on doing you. To you, the listener, let's go. If you're ever on your way up to Tahoe or you're in the Sacramento, Auburn area, check out Matt. They're making some amazing pizza. Grab a beer from one of these awesome breweries that we visited, and make sure to reach out to Matt at Bella Familia Pizza. He is chock full of knowledge, as you've probably seen. So let him know it's good dough. All right? I appreciate you so much for listening. If you're enjoying the content, please do me this one quick favor: like, subscribe, and share. I'd appreciate it so much if you did that. Other than that, thank you so much for tuning in. I love you. Till next time. Peace. Do you want a chance to win a $250 Uni gift card? Well, this is how you do it. Within the next 3 months, if you purchase something from uni.com using my affiliate link, send me your receipt. Each receipt that you send me, whether it's yours or a friend's or a neighbor's, will give you one entry into a raffle that will be giving away a $250 Uni gift card. That's all you have to do. All right, happy buying and best of luck. And thank you for supporting me and my show sponsors.